For people. How's everyone today? I'm hoping so swell, so wonderful, so truly radiant. I hope you're all shining brightly. Took the day off yesterday, and let me do my sound check real quick. Oh, that's the wrong one. So anyway, yep, took the day off yesterday since I need to yap a little bit in order to make sure the sound's working, and had a nice, lovely day. And so I hope the same for you guys, whether you took the day off, whether you worked. Nice. Okay, sounds working. I hope it was a magnificent day for you. One True Goddess, what's up? Welcome in. Happy Saturday. I hope your day is treating you so marvelous. All right. Very good. Music, check. Get the chat pulled back up. And I better flip on this light real quick. So, welcome everybody. This is Jay Baldell, and I'm ready to bring you some more of this new book we've decided to go ahead and crack into, to bust open. Robert Anton Wilson's Cosmic Trigger. So today we'll finish up the other little foreword and preface. And then since I took yesterday off, I'll probably be seeing you guys tomorrow for a little Sunday stream. And we'll start into part one then. Hey, what's up, girl? My cat wants to hang out, but at least right now, she doesn't have a whole lot to say right now. Right now is one of her more quiet times of life. Okay, I think that checks all the boxes on my end. So, welcome into those of you just coming in. Let's go ahead and bust into the tarot before we bust into the book. Hey, I know you want to say hello, but come here. All right, then. So, Saturday, yesterday, to honor that sacred energy that surrounds Friday, I found myself walking through a flower garden with the goddess. And it was a lot of fun. It was really beautiful. So if wherever you live, you've got some kind of flower gardens or an arbory, I think is what it's called when they'll plant a bunch of different trees and you can go see the different types of trees and all that. Well, perhaps this is your message to go do so. Go take a look at the flowers. Go take a look at the trees. It's one of the good times of year for it. I mean, it's always a good time, but especially spring. You know how it is. All those flowers are really starting to come in, and they come and go quick. So better go enjoy them. And let's see what this tarot's got for us as we finish off the beginning of this book. What's our Saturday Class B Cosmic Trigger type of meditation? Because I've probably said it before, but I use the tarot both as like I do use it for divination a bit, but I also just use it as like a meditative tool. I kind of started that way and I never really stopped, where there's a lot of times I'll pull one card for the day. Maybe sometimes I'll do like a 3-card spread, and then I will really just kind of let that image and energy and all of that be a good meditation as I go about my day, and I'll see the way that it kind of pops up in my day. And it's never really let me down. Sometimes it's been more sneaky and sometimes it's been more obvious, but almost every single time, no matter what, at some point or another, I realize, oh, there's that Two of Swords. There's that Nine of Pentacles. There's that Emperor card. Okay, well, let's cut the deck. Let's quit the yapping. It's going to be that card today. And a sword, an ace. I get an AC vibe. I get a swordy vibe. Any other guesses? Anybody else want to take a guess? Hey, what are you doing up on the computer like that? You're so funny. All right, be careful where you put your paws. Welcome in, everybody just coming in. And once your goddess says pentacles, all right then, let's take a look. Oh, wands. Well, there's some air in there, so the sword was kind of right, but not exactly. But this card is air of fire, wands fire, princes air, or they might be knights in your deck. And this one's a really cool one. So, man, he is on fire. Even his chariot is shooting up flames. It's almost like the flames are his seat, but he kind of has that little cushion above it there. He's got the lion pulling him. So Leo, but also we see that lion imagery or those like big cats, tigers, etc. A lot of times in different goddess imagery. And he's seated in that yoga asana too. So especially since this is Crowley's deck, I know Crowley identified with this card quite a bit. This was his I think it was his rising sign. Air of fire. Let's do a little more in a Tatwa way today. So if we're talking about air of fire, that's going to be a circle and a triangle. Well, that's motion. That's kind of motion either way you look at it. Again, we got those masculine energies. I think Dub VT, it's great to see you. Happy studies. Thank you so much. And I hope you're having a happy Saturday. I hope all is well in your world. It's so wonderful to see you. I swear we had this like flip flop the other day because we had the fire of air. So now I guess we get the air of fire, those masculine type of energies. Well, and I think sometimes I kind of like flip flop my words around a little bit because I was saying that card's kind of rooted in fire, but actually it would have been a little more rooted in. It's like it's kind of in both, you know what I mean? Because if it's both, if it's air in fire or fire in air, then they're both there. But I guess the one would be in the other. So if the fire is the main energy here, but it's the air in the fire. Hmm. Hmm. Well, aligning your mind and your, I guess we could call it like your true will, if that's a little more in that fire and those sparks in that cosmic doctrine way, like the sparks go out, the rays go out, because we do see rays here as well coming off this card quite a bit. And even on his crown, it looks like he's got one of those crowns that's like symbolic of the sun with the way the rays are coming off it. So I suppose, what I'm kind of getting off it is more like just that idea of figuring out, know thyself, right? Figuring out who it is you are, what it is you're trying to do in life. That's in that true place of alignment, not in not in the ways we can easily trick ourselves, but really taking the time to listen to those inner spiritual type of voices, which would go a little more with that masculine type of energy, which is there's both these elements here, air and fire. Because if it's all the dance of the masculine feminine, the Shiva Shakti, then letting that be your guide, kind of like as he's doing here. I mean, he's letting that fire be his guide, but also kind of that place he's resting. And then from there we got that air aspect too. So your mind, your thoughts. And so kind of letting that guide it. So rather than when some of those thoughts come up that maybe throw us off course a bit, distract us, however, so get us caught up in the different ways we get caught up. Taking a minute to stop right there and turn it back on itself a bit. You know, use the mind and use the air and use the fire, use the mind and use the will to point it right back on itself a little bit and say, hey, are you trying to guide me into some nonsense right now, or are you guiding me into what's going to be true? Okay. Well, that I know that for sure is going to help keep you in a pretty good situation in life, functioning that way. All right, and then we'll see how that lines up in this here book as well. So we got a quick little foreword by Timothy Leary, the crazy man himself. Well, kind of. I don't know. He seemed crazy, but in like a good way, not in like a bad way. Is there a good and a bad? I don't know. A lot of people talk about that. Guess it's hard to know for sure, huh? Okay. So forward by Timothy Leary, PhD. Robert Anton Wilson is a man whose time has come. It is true of all good things. They are a long time coming. Intelligence on this planet has evolved in metamorphic stages, long periods of quiescent preparation, then sudden slam bang flashes of change. The personal evolution of Robert Anton Wilson has followed the same rhythm. It's always like that with sages, evolutionary operatives, intelligence agents. It has been axiomatic since Haeckel that ontology recapitulates phylogeny, that the individual in her, and then let's see. So it's a HIR, so there's a little note that says, editor's note, Dr. Leary prefers the forms she, capital SH, lowercase e, for she or he, and here, HIR, for his or her, to the traditional habit of referring to the general human being as masculine. All right, then. I've seen a few authors do that before, so nifty. That the individual in her development repeats step by step the evolution of the species. We now understand the mystery and the paradox of the great alchemists, philosophers, mystics, sages. They precapitulate, they positively live out their own nervous systems, the future of evolution, the stages which await in the future of the species. Their nervous systems get into communication via reverse transcriptase with DNA. They learn how to decode the genetic blueprint. They experience what is to happen in the future. This surely is the royal road to wisdom, the highway of evolution. The two-way traffic between the central nervous system and the DNA archives via RNA messenger molecules. Consider Lao Tzu in the 6th century BC. She realizes Einsteinian relativity, senses that all is flow and evolutionary change, anticipates in the I Ching what computer designers will understand 2,500 years later, that energy comes in the binary code of yin yang, off on, forecasts in the Ching trigrams what microgeneticists will discover 2,500 years later, the triplicate function of amino acid binding. Now, reflect on the poignant destiny of Lao Tzu. She knows that she will not be around in biological form when Watson and Crick decipher the DNA code. The time lag problem is solved by trans-time neurogenetic signalry, symbolism. The intelligence agent called Lao Tzu teaches the I Ching codes to do domesticated primates, injects some fortune telling hocus pocus, and thus sends down the 2,500-year CNS RNA DNA teletype channel this basic code. She knows that Confucius will distort the signal with Boy Scout moralisms dutifully preserved in the inane Baines Wilhelm commentaries, knows that countless charlatans will peddle vulgar I Ching fortunes for a nickel in Oriental bazaars, But she knows also that when external technology catches up, 20th century intelligence agents will receive the dot dash trigram message and realize that binary codes and triplicate trigrams are genetic guideposts explaining the direction and molecular structure of evolution. From the terrestrial dashes, Earth, to the extraterrestrial solid lines, heaven. So see, I'm not I Ching is something I've really wanted to learn more about, and so my understanding of it is like very basic. But I know that part of the way you divine is with these sticks that are either these more whole long sticks, like you see represented on the page here, or these broken sticks. And then based on the way that they lay, then you would go through the book, and there's also like coins involved and all that. So there is a little system to figuring it out. But then based on that, and you go in the book and you match it up, and it'll give you a reading, like there'll actually be a line in the book based on what you get, and it'll break it down for you. But that's my very basic understanding of it. So if there's any I Ching experts out there, please hit me up, because I've been wanting to learn more about that. Okay, but it is interesting. So these dashed ones, so it would be the three sticks but dashed, so it actually gives you six, would be Earth, or the three solid lines would be the I Ching hexagram for heaven. Then he says, now consider the Buddha, and welcome into those you just coming in. Also, in the 6th century BC, he realizes that consciousness creates reality, that all is Maya, i.e., an internal dance of neurons, an external dance of protons. She advises detachment from tribal imprints, local reality tunnels, announces the octave nature of evolution, again, knowing it will be corrupted by moralists into the eightfold path of domesticated virtue, and marketed eventually as the 8x8 chessboard. She knows that Mendeleev and the octave division of quarks await 100 generations in the future. We are awed by this unbroken chain of generational signaling. In each of the 100 generations since Buddha, a few intelligence agents are born and spend their brief lives detached from the hive, poring over the octaves. In response, we assume to some RNA suggestion about the sequence of the 8 periods of evolution, from heavy to light, from slow to fast, from water to fire, from terrestrial to post terrestrial, from Kun to Chin, which again is that similar hexagram. So I wonder if that's just the Chinese, I think it would be, words for earth and heaven. From earth metals to noble gases, or maybe that's what it is, earth metals and noble gases, Kun and Chin. Next, consider the plight of G.I. Gurdjieff, who 40 years before the Apollo lunar landings and 50 years before the space shuttle writes Beelzebub's tales to his grandson, predicting the post-terrestrial future of the species. Recall the last lines of Aleister Crowley's Confessions, where he sadly recognizes that scientific experiments of the next generations will manifest precisely what his magical rituals could only internalize and ceremonially anticipate. This book, Cosmic Trigger, and its author, Robert Anton Wilson, can best be understood as modern links in this unbroken chain of alchemical philosophers and intelligence agents who have systematically learned how to dial and tune their own nervous systems and, via internal biochemical auto experiments, learn how to converse via RNA with their own DNA, decipher the genetic Rosetta Stone, and get direct experiential knowledge of the evolutionary process. Wilson describes 30 years of experimentation on and with his own brain. Most important, he recounts his attempts to correlate inner subjective vision with the external, objective language of the energy sciences. And here is the issue: the classic challenge of philosophy to expand inner neurological reality and to link it with the outer realities measured by scientists. Intelligence evolves when the occult and magical become the objective scientific. I recall clearly my first conversation with Robert Anton Wilson in 1964. He was the first and lonely journalist who had actually read my writings and understood the steady development of my own research, from interpersonal psychology to interstellar neurogenetics. Wilson's ability to open himself up and receive signals both from within his own expanding neurology and from the broadcasts of scientists define him as one of the key personalities of modern neurological philosophy. He is becoming a major literary figure. There are two words which always define a great writer, philosopher: encyclopedic and epic. Each civilization, we are told, produces at its high watermark one or more encyclopedic works which summarize the knowledge, technology, culture, philosophy of the epoch. Such books are like neurogenetic manuals which summarize and explain a primitive planetary culture to an intelligence agent from another world. Dante, Boccaccio, James Joyce, Hess. As American civilization moves from its adolescence into the final terrestrial stages of technological centralization preceding space migration, it is beginning to produce such encyclopedic writings. For example, Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow, the Illuminatus trilogy of Wilson and Shea, and the book you hold in your hand. Please consult this book if and when you wish a modern, personal summary of such basic concepts as the Illuminati conspiracy, the Sirius phenomenon, UFOs, mind changing drugs, new experiential perspectives on Lee Harvey Oswald, Jim Garrison, Hugh Hefner, the 24 colony, or excuse me, the 24 clones of Timothy Leary, the meaning of the number 23, Aleister Crowley, Aldous Huxley, Carl Sagan, Gurdjieff, Alan Watts, William Burroughs, Immortality, Nikola Tesla, Modern Quantum Theory, the physics of consciousness, the 8 evolving circuits of the nervous system, etc. In each of these academic references, there is an anecdotal flash so that these important names and topics become alive on the page. This is good writing. Cosmic Trigger is also an epic work. An epic is a story of exploration, voyaging, adventurous search for meaning. Cosmic Trigger is an odyssey recounting the personal quest of the author. He explores the labyrinth regions of his own brain with drugs and many other neuroactivating methods. He experiments with magic, ritual, ESP, isolation. He continually consults his most treasured traveling companions, his beautiful red haired wife, Arlen, and his sparkling wise children. Wilson realizes, as do all alchemists, that he must evolve as the work develops. He knows that the motto Salve et Coagula means that he too must accept personal dissolution, that he must vary his own temperature and pressure, test his own sanity in the crucible of change. He gives up a deluxe sexy job and retreats to social isolation. He plunges unflinchingly into outcast poverty. He becomes that most recklessly heroic person, the self employed intellectual. He turns his back on faculty salary and establishment, grant and lives by his wits and wisdom. Reading this book, we share his grinding Blakean poverty, his highs and lows. Cosmic Trigger sparkles with humor, openness of mind, courage, understanding, tolerance. It is the epic adventure of a man who invites us to grow and change with him. We thank you, Robert Anton Wilson, for this timely and timeful treasure. Los Angeles, California, summer 1977. Nice. That was a good little forward. Thanks, Tim Leary. All right, so prologue, thinking about the unthinkable. And I think from now and the whole rest of the book, then it's all of Wilson's writing. Yeah. Okay, very good. So we'll do this, and then, yep, tomorrow we'll go ahead and start into part one. Oh, and over here, a little quote, a little epigram, we could call it. Everything you know is wrong. The Fire Sign Theater. Thinking about the unthinkable. As the late great H.P. Lovecraft might begin this narrative, it is now nearly 13 years since the ill-fated day when I first began investigating the terrible legends surrounding the enigmatic Bavarian Illuminati, an alleged conspiracy that some people believe rules the world. Like a Lovecraft hero, I embarked on my research with no suspicion of the perils awaiting me. I thought I was just investigating a noble case of political paranoia and expected to find only some insight into the psychology which causes otherwise sane individuals to subscribe to such absurdly ridiculous conspiracy theories. Eventually, in collaboration with Robert J. Shea, I wrote a 3-volume satirical novel on the conspiracy, Illuminatus, Completing such an exhaustingly long book should have terminated my interest in the subject, but my researches continued nonetheless, evidently propelled by some mysterious momentum. Rising organ music, please. I had become psychically hooked to the Illuminati, like a tarantula in the bed sheets or the laugh of a woman you once loved. The accursed Illuminati simply could not be forgotten or ignored. This was most annoying to the skeptic, who is one of the 24 selves who live within me and the only one who usually possesses veto power over all the others. So yeah, as we go through this book, he'll refer to himself. So the skeptic is one of the like names or titles you could say, an epithet, however you want to look at it, that he gives to himself, and like a certain aspect of himself that he kind of kicks on and juggles around with these other ones. It's a lot of fun. And welcome into those of you just coming in. I hope everybody's having a wonderful Saturday. All right. Eventually, my interest in the Illuminati was to lead me through a cosmic funhouse featuring double and triple agents, UFOs, possible presidential assassination plots, the enigmatic symbols on the dollar bill, messages from Sirius, pancakes from God knows where, the ambiguities of Aleister Crowley, some mysterious hawks that follow Uri Geller around, futurists, immortalists, plans to leave this planet, and the latest paradoxes of quantum mechanics. It has been a prolonged but never boring pursuit, like trying to find a cobra in a dark room before it finds you. And Molly Poucher, what's up? Welcome. I hope you're having a good day. Oh, and hang on, now that my cat has jumped off the computer, I better pull my stuff back up the way I like it. Or did you manage to close it all? Look at you. Okay. Oh, come on. No, I don't want to set that up. Okay, there we go. All right, let's get back into it. Pancakes from God knows where. Briefly, the background of the Bavarian Illuminati puzzle is this. On May 1st, 1776, in Bavaria, Dr. Adam Weishaupt, a professor of canon law at Ingolstadt University and a former Jesuit, formed a secret society called the Order of the Illuminati within the existing lodges of Germany. Since Masonry is itself a secret society, the Illuminati was a secret society within a secret society, a mystery inside a mystery, so to say. Just like trying to get this book stand to work with each and every different book, huh? But we always find a way. Even if I gotta give it a little muscle. Okay. In 1785, the Illuminati were suppressed by the Bavarian government for allegedly plotting to overthrow all the kings in Europe and the Pope to boot. This much is generally agreed upon by all historians. Everything else is a matter of heated and sometimes fetid controversy. It has been claimed that Dr. Weishaupt was an atheist, a Kabbalistic magician, a rationalist, a mystic, a Democrat, a socialist, an anarchist, a fascist, a Machiavellian, a moralist, an alchemist, a totalitarian, and an enthusiastic philanthropist. The last was the verdict of Thomas Jefferson, by the way. The Illuminati have also been credited with managing the French and American revolutions behind the scenes, taking over the world, being the brains behind communism, continuing underground up to the 1970s, secretly worshiping the devil, and mopery with intent to gawk. Some claim that Weishaupt didn't even invent the Illuminati, but only revived it. The Order of Illuminati has been traced back to the Knights Templar, to the Greek and Gnostic initiatory cults, to Egypt, even to Atlantis. The one safe generalization one can make is that Weishaupt's intent to maintain secrecy has worked. No two students of Illuminology have ever agreed totally about what the inner secret or purpose of the order actually was or is. There is endless room for spooky speculation and for pedantic paranoia. Once one really gets into the literature of the subject, And there has been a wave of sensational exposés of the Illuminati every generation since 1776. If you were to believe all this sensational literature, the damned Bavarian conspirators were responsible for everything wrong with the world, including the energy crises and the fact that you can't even get a plumber on the weekends. For instance, the first explosion of anti Illuminati hysteria in this country in the 1790s was stirred up by fantastic Federalists and centered on the change that Thomas Jefferson and the Democratic Republican Party were pawns of the European Illuminati. The second major cluster of excited exposés came in the 1840s and was circulated by the anti Masonic Party, who believed that the Illuminati still controlled the Masons and had infiltrated our government at all levels. Molly Poucher, yeah, that's interesting for sure, right? The dang Illuminati. In both of these instances, the Illuminati were portrayed as radical Democrats or outright anarchists in the tradition of the ultra left wing of the French Revolution. Current anti Illuminati literature, which is mostly distributed through the anti Semitic paramilitary right, portrays the Illuminati as the masters of both international communism and international banking. Yeah, and this was written in the 70s. A separate and weirder strain of anti Illuminati theory, occasionally interacting with this political conspiracy literature, portrays the Illuminati as Nazis, black magicians, astral mind fuckers, and Satanists. But these are only the major themes of the anti Illuminati symphony. There are countless individuals who have tooted some bebop riffs. Example: Philip Campbell, Argyle Smith, editor of a bizarre journal called High IQ Bulletin, claims that the Illuminati, known as Jews on this planet, are actually invaders from Vulcan. I have also seen a book, author and title now forgotten, alas, which argued that the Illuminati are a Jesuit conspiracy which infiltrated Masonry and then took over the world, using the Masonic front to keep anybody from guessing that the real control actually comes from the Vatican. Typical of the ingenuity of such conspiracy theories. The facts which most glaringly contradict it, namely the anti Masonic fulminations and excommunications by all the popes for the last century, and the tons of anti Catholic propaganda circulated by Masonic lodges, are explained as part of the cover up. And of course, anti Illuminati diatribes of all schools somberly agree that accidents have a way of happening to those who find out too much about the Bavarian Illuminati. Let's have that rising organ music again, and an eldritch laugh. The shadows on the old radio series. Like the shadows on the old radio series. Once, when I was appearing on a radio show on KGO San Francisco, where listeners call in and talk to the guests, a woman phoned to say I knew so much about the Illuminati that I must be one of them. I became whimsical. Maybe, I said, the secret of the Illuminati is that you don't know you're a member until it's too late to get out. This was too metaphysical for the caller. Furthermore, she said triumphantly, pursuing her own script, you're the people who control the Federal Reserve and the Morgan and Rockefeller banks. Well, said the writer of satire. So, see, there's another one of his little epithets there, the way he's got it capitalized. So, well, said the writer of satire, temporarily displacing the skeptic. So, see how he's displacing the skeptic part of him and he's becoming now the writer of satire. I certainly won't deny that. It can't help but improve my credit rating. That woman is probably still telling her friends how she got one of the Illuminati to confess right over the radio. Oh, I bet. Actually, I no longer disbelieve in the Illuminati, but I don't believe in them yet either. Let us explain that odd remark quickly before we go any further in the murk. In researching occult conspiracies, one eventually faces a crossroad of mythic proportions, called Chapel Perilous in the trade. You come out the other side either a stone paranoid or an agnostic. There is no third way. I came out an agnostic. Chapel Perilous, like the mysterious entity called I, cannot be located in this space time continuum. It is weightless, odorless, tasteless, and undetectable by ordinary instruments. Indeed, like the ego, it is even possible to deny that it is there. And yet, even more like the ego, once you are inside it, there doesn't seem to be any way to ever get out again until you suddenly discover that it has been brought into existence by thought and does not exist outside thought. Everything you fear is waiting with the slavering jaws in Chapel Perilous. But if you are armed with the wand of intuition, the cup of sympathy, the sword of reason, and the pentacle of valor, you will find there, the legends say, the medicine of metals, the elixir of life, the philosopher's stone, true wisdom, and perfect happiness. That's what the legends always say. And the language of myth is poetically precise. For instance, if you go into that realm without the sword of reason, you will lose your mind. But at the same time, if you take only the sword of reason without the cup of sympathy, you will lose your heart. Even more remarkably, if you approach without the wand of intuition, you can stand at the door for decades, never realizing you've arrived. You might think you are just waiting for a bus or wandering from room to room looking for your cigarettes, watching a TV show, or reading a cryptic and ambiguous book. Chapel Perilous is tricky that way. I'll say. How many of you have experienced a Chapel Perilous moment or two? I entered Chapel Perilous quite casually one day in 1971 while reading The Book of Lies by the English mystic Aleister Crowley. Crowley aroused my interest because he had indubitably been a high adept of both yoga and occultism, was regarded as a black magician by many, and as the magus of the new aeon by some, and had a contradictory reputation as a heroic mountain climber, poet, bisexual pioneer hippie, alchemist, sadistic prankster, worker of wonders, and charlatan. I was especially charmed by the persistent legend that Crowley had once turned poet Victor Newberg into a camel, and the testimony of many that he had smashed a glass across a room by staring at it in a demonstration at Oxford. All of Crowley's books are witty, paradoxical, brilliant, obscure, and deliberately enigmatic in varying degrees, but the Book of Lies is by all odds the most mystifying of all, and hence a favorite of mine, since I love to solve puzzles and mysteries. Facing the title page of the Book of Lies is a nonchalant announcement informing the reader there is no joke or hidden meaning in the publisher's imprint. This seems to be a veiled warning about what will follow, but is actually the first lie in the book. Occult historian Francis King has carefully determined the date on the imprint is inaccurate by at least a year. This type of perverse artistry is typical of Crowley's dealings with the reader, and I have enjoyed myself over the years deciphering his similarly gnomic jokes in other books. I always return to the Book of Lies, however, because Crowley claimed that somewhere in that book he had revealed the inner secret of Freemasonry and Illuminism, coded so that only those with spiritual insight were able to decipher it. In 1971, I had already read the book many times without finding the secret, but I was still trying, since Crowley is regarded as a ringleader of the Illuminati conspiracy by many writers, and indeed used the title Epopt of the Illuminati along with a few dozen other honorifics when he was in the mood to put on some swank. Putting on some swank. Oh yeah. Speaking of which, Josue Yara. My bad. What's up, man? It's good to see you. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. Suddenly, in a blinding flash, or at least a mini Satori, I knew Crowley's secret. It was in chapter 69 and deals with tantric sex. It will be explained, you may be sure, at the appropriate place in our narrative. The effect on me was that I entered a belief system in which the anti Illuminati authors I had studied so extensively were no longer seen by me as simple paranoids. They were looking at something quite real, I now felt, and were only misinterpreting it a little bit. Tale as old as time. They were those without the pantacle of valor, who stand in terror outside the door of Chapel Perilous. Uh-oh, we almost thought he forgot about the pantacle a minute ago. Pentacle, when he was talking about your different magical weapons, but here we go. Trembling and warning all who would enter that the chapel is really an insect horror machine programmed by death demons and dripping fetidly with green goo. I immediately determined upon a course of neuropsychological experiments which would, I thought, demonstrate objectively whether or not I had really guessed the true secret. The principal results of these experiments are presented in this book. The outstanding result was that I entered a belief system from July 1973 until around October 1974, in which I was receiving telepathic messages from entities residing on a planet of the double star Sirius. I also began to find, sometimes by the most implausible coincidences, various documentary leads firmly tying the long, mysterious history of Illuminism to occult beliefs about Sirius. These lucky coincidences, or synchronicities as they say are called in Jungian psychology, are commonplace among those who get involved with occult secret societies in general and Chapel Perilous in particular. As Neil Wilgus notes, the Illuminoids. And so, yeah, for the whole idea of synchronicity, well, it's not really an idea. If you know, you know, type of thing. But that, like most other things, are about refinement and your ability to kind of refine what you see and how you understand synchronicity. And as always, it's usually wise to not buy into maybe any one thing right away. I mean, you do got four magical tools after all. Okay, so as Neil Wilgus notes in the Illuminoids, from the beginning, the Illuminoids was shaped by coincidence, from the discovery of Darrell's secret societies to the publication of Shea and Wilson's Illuminatus. A book by another Wilson, Colin Wilson's The Occult, was also discovered at just the right moment and often fell open at the right page, just as Wilson says other references did for him. That last sentence is a fitting overture to the ambiguities we shall soon confront. Not even I am sure whether the last clause refers to me or Colin Wilson. After October 1974, due to a meeting with Dr. Jacques Vallée, an extraordinarily erudite astronomer, cyberneticist, and UFOologist, I began to develop new belief systems to explain my serious experience, not necessarily involving the breathtaking assumption that I was literally receiving actual transmissions from an ESP broadcaster in the Sirius star system. Dr. Vallée has been concerned with UFOs since the early 1960s when he saw two of the beasties. Over the years, Vallée has broadened his investigation to include psychic experiences that relate in one way or another to UFOs, such as my serious experiences. He believes that this whole area of otherworldly communications has been going on for centuries and will probably not turn out to be extraterrestrial. The extraterrestrial content of the experience these days, he said, is just an adaptation to 20th century belief. The phenomenon took other and spookier forms, his data indicate, in other epochs. This made perfect sense to me since I had originally gotten in touch with the entity by means of a Crowleyan occultism. The extraterrestrial explanation was not the real explanation, as I had thought. It was just the latest model for the experience, as angels had been a model for it in the Middle Ages, or dead relatives speaking through mediums had been a model in the 19th century. Then, on Sunday, March 13th, 1976, a dispatch from Rudder's news service appeared in newspapers around the world. I read it in the San Francisco Examiner Chronicle, and it was like opening a door in my own house and finding Ming the Merciless shooting it out with Flash Gordon. The dispatch concerned Robert K.G. Temple, a fellow of the Royal Astronomical Society of England, a scientist of dignity and status, who was propounding a theory wild enough to come from the pages of von Daniken himself. Temple claimed that Earth had been visited by an advanced race from a planet in the system of the double star Sirius around 4500 BC. Temple based this assertion on the fact that definite and specific knowledge of the Sirius system can be found in the mythology of the Babylonians, the Egyptians, and some surviving African tribes. Shout out to Bobby Hemmett, huh? Knowledge which modern astronomy has only rediscovered with the fantastically delicate instruments of the last 2 decades. Now, anybody who would be taken aback to see an astronomer of Temple status expressing such a harsed Sunday magazine theory, but I was beyond surprised. I was discombobulated. I mentioned the Rutter's dispatch a few days afterward to a friend, Saul Paul Sirib, a monstrously erudite physicist who usually knows more about any other science you mention than most of the experts in that field. Oh, Temple's data aren't new at all, Saul Paul said. Anthropologists have known for years that several African tribes have very advanced knowledge about the Sirius system. For instance, some of them knew about the companion of Sirius, a dwarf star, long before we discovered it with our telescopes. And how do the anthropologists explain that? I asked. They don't, Saul Paul said with a Groucho Marx grin. It's regarded as a mystery. Saul Paul, who was a theologian before he became a physicist, is also the author of a hilarious theological psychedelic novel called Jumped by Jesus. He is an even more advanced case of aggravated agnosticism than your humble narrator and loves data that won't fit into anybody's theories. I quickly obtained a copy of Temple's book from England and was staggered by it Temple's evidence, which we will summarize later, could be interpreted to indicate the arrival of people from Sirius who had come here in a physical spaceship around 4500 BC. According to Temple, information about this had been passed on through various initiatory orders in the ancient Mediterranean and in Africa to the present time. But the evidence could also be interpreted to mean that methods of interstellar telepathy, interstellar telepathy between Earth and the Sirius system had been discovered back then, and that many have been tuning in on that channel ever since. In other words, through Crowley's secret teaching, I might have tuned in on a nearly 6,500-year-old cosmic dialogue after all. And Big Titty Girl, welcome in, says, God died for our skins. Ha, nice one. And Amy Brannigan, 176, welcome into you, says, a reading from the Book of Trump. Huh. All right, then. Welcome in, you guys. I hope you're having a good day. Chapel Perilous, as I said before, is tricky that way. When you think you're out of it, you're just in another hall of illusions painted to look like the safe forest outside. And when you think you're inside again, you'll suddenly discover you're actually walking on the road back home. As the traditional Zen saying sums it up, first there is a mountain, then there is no mountain, then there is. In this context, we don't expect anybody to believe in the serious transmissions just because the author seems like an honest guy. Richard Milhouse Nixon once seemed like an honest guy, at least to the folks who voted for him. We are empathetically not competing for the true believer market with Nixon or Eric von Daniken. We hope to show with objective and documented evidence that something is going on, something more physical and palpable than hallucination. The semanticist raises his eyebrows and mutters that the expression, something more physical and palpable than hallucination, does not convey a very precise idea. One might as well talk of something more tangible and objective than reverie. We will become more specific as we proceed, but at this stage we must define our god awful ignorance explicitly before we dare to propound our speculations. It is important to state unambiguously that our data are not in conflict with science, as the naive will imagine. In fact, we will provide several scientific explanations for all of it in part 2, but it is grotesquely and awkwardly in total conflict with common sense. It is perverse, paradoxical, and preposterous. One might say, it's damned funny. And if a child asked innocently, do you mean funny ha ha or funny peculiar? I'd have to answer, both. Let us illustrate with an example of the kind of mystery we will be confronting. The case of pancakes from outer space. Like a pig with wings, this is definitely funny. We leave it to the reader to decide whether you consider it funny ha ha or funny peculiar. Joseph Simonton of Eagle River, Wisconsin, claims that a flying saucer landed in his backyard one day and an extraterrestrial got out and gave him some pancakes. Uh-oh. There were no other witnesses to this remarkable occurrence, so it is certainly tempting to say that Simonton must have been hallucinating. There is no reason to think that he was consciously perpetuating a hoax, however. He has not tried to commercialize on his encounter in any way and seems to be baffled by the whole experience, just as you would be. Dr. J. Allen Hynek, a skeptical astronomer who explained other UFOs as swamp gas, was sent by the Air Force to investigate the Simonton mindfuck. Dr. Hynek took some of the damnable pancakes back to the Dayton Air Force Base, where the UFO investigation is headquartered, and scientists there determined that the pancakes were perfectly normal and contained nutritious wheat germ, perhaps indicating that the Space Brothers are Ralph Nader fans. Dr. Hynek himself says he thinks that Simonton was telling the truth, i.e., he believed in his experience. Dr. Jacques Vallée also investigated this case and says that he too is convinced that Simonton is honest. Simonton himself has no idea why he, of all the people on Earth, was signaled out for this perplexing gift. If Simonton merely hallucinated the whole episode, where did the accursed astral pancakes actually come from? Answer me that, O ye skeptics. On the other hand, if the flying saucer was really there in the yard, why in the name of all the pot-bellied gods of Burma did the extraterrestrials decide on this occasion to present a human being with a gift of pancakes? The story is equally bizarre and unsatisfying however we interpret it. Simonton's adventure is more characteristic of UFO contacts than readers who are unfamiliar with the subject will realize. The newspapers and TV generally cover only a tiny fraction of UFO reports and usually publicize only the contactees who establish quasi-religious movements around themselves, based on doctrines of peace and pop ecology allegedly transmitted by the UFO nuts. Such messianic accounts are comfortable reading, since most of us clearly would like to believe that benevolent space brothers are trying to save this planet from the various disasters that seem to threaten it. But they are a minority. The Simonton pancakes are much more typical. One classic contact involved two naval intelligence officers of high probity. There was also a coincidental but highly mysterious radar blackout of the whole area, almost as if Chapel Perilous in this case was using a technology that renders itself invisible to radar. The officers seem to have contacted a benevolent being from the planet Uranus. Uranus, I think. The naive believer in loving space brothers will rejoice at such a yarn, especially since the communications received included the usual peace propaganda. The more analytical will detect the pig with wings element in the facts that A, Uranus is almost certainly incapable of supporting life, and B, the communicating entity gave a name which sounds suspiciously like a joke at the expense of any student of Kabbalah who studies the transcript. The name was Alpha, AFFA, which in a Kabbalistic language called angelic means nothing or the void. The contact in this case was 99% telepathic, as in my serious experience, but the officers were given a view of what looked like a real spaceship outside their window at the climax of the experience. And that was the point in time when the radar blackout coincidentally occurred in the area. Others have had classic hallucinatory or psychotic experiences with the Space Brothers, such as meeting Jesus on a flying saucer or being taken 100 light years and back in a half an hour, so that the hurried investigator would be inclined to dismiss such yarns as imaginary. Unfortunately, these people often have ambiguous but definite evidence that something happened. Independent witnesses saw a UFO at the same time, or there were weird mechanical failures in the neighborhood. Once, two people involved in different contacts hundreds of miles away from each other and a year apart told the same absurd details. Each alleged to visit a planet named Lenalis, where all the natives are humanoid and go naked. This yarn was told by both a West Virginia salesman and a Washington, D.C. law student, independently of each other. In such a case, the most ardent reductionist can't reduce what happened to less than a hallucination shared by telepathy, which is staggering in itself. How many independent witnesses have to be involved before any event can no longer be dismissed as a shared hallucination? As Berkeley, Hume, and others have indicated, it is logically impossible to prove that our everyday experience isn't all fantasy. Since only telepathy can explain the shared space journey in this particular case, data may be called shared hallucination by the determined skeptic, even when witnesses are independent of each other. That way lies solipsism, if not paranoia. To claim that both witnesses were liars would be convenient, of course, but one has the uneasy feeling that it is a weird coincidence for two liars to independently invent the same lie. You could reject any data that way, including any laboratory experiments you don't like. For instance, those who reject even telepathy have reached the point where they are impugning either the honesty or the sanity of several thousand scientific researches on all major continents over a period of decades. Such expedient ways of disposing data are shared only by the most ardent anti evolutionists among the fundamentalist sects. Please note that we promised several scientific explanations of our data, not one explanation. There is, at this point, no single theory that will account for all of the damn things we are going to bring forth and parade for your inspection. To give you some perspective in advance, let us list a few of the ideas that have passed through this investigator's mind in the course of his journey into and out of Chapel Perilous. Either A. The evidence assembled here can be explained by Bell's theorem, a breakthrough in physics suggesting a basic indivisibility of all things. Bell also allows for three submodels we shall be discussing. One, the observer created universe. Two, parallel universes. Three, information without energy. And or B, some human beings of highly evolved psychic powers, the Illuminati, are playing head games with other human beings, sometimes passing themselves off as C or D below. And or C, we really are being contacted, experimented upon, or otherwise manipulated by higher intelligences from outer space, probably from Sirius, or the Illuminati are creating a simulation of such extraterrestrials. And or D, we have always shared this planet with another intelligent species, which can either remain invisible or manifest to us in any form it chooses. UFO researcher John Keel calls these hypothetical entities ultra terrestrials. Earlier ages called them fairies, angels, demons, the weird people, etc. And or E, we are all evolving into the use of new neurological circuits which will make us superhuman in comparison to our present average state. The activation of these new circuits creates a great deal of temporary weirdness until we learn to use them properly. This is the theory of such scientifically oriented yogis as Sri Aurobindo and Gopi Krishna, and of Dr. Timothy Leary. And or F, a combination or permutation of the above is going on simultaneously. All right, then. And then let's see. Mabez XX, welcome, says, by the left hand of flame and the thorn crown reversed, let you be marked by the beast. May your every joy crumble to ash and all your love betray you. Ave Satanas. Oh, man, we got a real spooky type of guy popping in. I hope you're having a good Saturday. Mabez XXX. Get thee away from me, Satan. Some of our data fit one of the above theories better than another. Some fit equally well into two or three theories. Some don't fit any theory yet. The multi theory approach, or as it is called in physics, the multi model approach, is the only way to deal adequately with all the facts. Any single theory approach is premature and causes a truncation of our intelligence. It forces us to ignore or belittle parts of the data that might be crucial. The multi-model approach began in subatomic physics and is chiefly due to the Nobel laureate Niels Bohr. In dealing with certain mysterious entities on that quasi-astral plane, physicists had found hard evidence that these entities were particles. Good. Unfortunately, other evidence, equally persistent, showed that the entities were really waves. Not so good. Some physicists held to the particle theory and insisted that all evidence supporting the wave theory would eventually be explained away. Others, however, accepted the waves and rejected the particles. Still others, somewhat facetiously, began talking of wavicles. Bohr suggested that the search for one correct model was medieval, pre-scientific, and obsolete. We can best understand subatomic events, he said, if we accept the necessity of allowing for more than one model. As Marshall McLuhan has pointed out, the Mechanical Bride and as pointed out in the Mechanical Bride, in other words, the multi-model approach has now influenced all the sciences and even appears in modern art. Example, Cubist painting shows several views at once. Joyce's Ulysses describes the same day in various styles: epic, dramatic, journalistic, subjective, naturalistic, etc. McLuhan has even proclaimed in his usual apocalyptic style that the multi-model approach is the most important and most original intellectual discovery of the 20th century. Count Alfred Korzybski said that it marked the transition from Aristotelian civilization, dogmatic, monistic, authoritarian, to non-Aristotelian civilization, relativistic, pluralistic, libertarian. For convenience, all of the models discussed above and to be discussed as we proceed can be summed into two meta models. One, it is all done by our own nervous system. As we advance toward higher intelligence, our brains can increasingly affect the universe by quantum inseparability, creating first coincidences, then Jungian synchronicities, then seemingly external superhuman beings who are really masks of the greater selves we are evolving into. Two, it is not all done by our nervous systems. As we advance toward higher intelligence, our brains can increasingly contact other higher intelligences. By Bell's quantum monism, this includes contact with advanced adepts who are both human and inhuman, terrestrial and extraterrestrial, and located temporarily throughout what we call past, present, and future. But such philosophical questions can best be postponed until we have examined the chronologue of my own adventures in Chapel Perilous. Remember, it is tricky in there. Some of the time, we will not seem to be passing through the gates of mystery, but merely wandering about in a funhouse at a rather seedy amusement park. All right. Well, that does sound rather enjoyable. So, that will do it for that final little intro slash preface to the book. And tomorrow we will go ahead and crack into part one, the serious connection. And elevator has guide rail 3666. Welcome, says Jesus rose up from the dead. You best believe it. And I hope you're having a wonderful day. I hope you're having a really wonderful day. Oh, and let's see, Sigma Billy. I missed you, Sigma Billy. Well, I hope you're having a magnificent day too. All right, then, everybody. So, I hope you're enjoying this one so far. I forgot how fun this one is. It's been a little bit since I read this book, but it is enjoyable. Again, a little bit of it might be dated, but for its time, oh yeah, a masterpiece for sure. So, I wish you all a good rest of your Saturday. I might see some of you later. I might see some of you, well, for sure I'll see, who knows. I'll see you guys when I see you. That much is for sure. But may your day and your journey be blessed. Much love to you all. I appreciate you all. And this has been Jay Baldell and Robert Anton Wilson's Cosmic Trigger, the final secret of the Illuminati. Okay, bye bye.